Hello, this is your host, Dr. David Pomeroy, host of ADHD Focus. And we're so glad you could join me today. My guest today is Dr. Tamara Rosier, and we're going to be talking about the murderers of motivation, which I think getting started on something, at least 80%, if not more, of my patients I see identifies as their biggest ADHD challenge. Once we get started, you may get into the flow and keep going, but getting over that starting hurdle, and there are a number of things that come out of our ADHD qualities, traits, that block that. But then there's some solutions. And Dr. Rosier is going to take us in through those as well. Tamara, it's wonderful to have you back again.
I love talking with you. Every time we talk, I just love it.
Great, thank you. So the middle two chapters of your book, Your Brain's Not Broken, talk about first of all, the murderers of motivation, and then the solve it grid, and how to look at balancing your energy over the day so you can deal with this motivation issue. So let's talk about the murderers of motivation. How do they grow out of our ADHD?
Yeah, and I know you've heard this too. Everyone seems to be talking about task initiation. And we know that that's the correct psychological term for the issues we have. In other words, we have issues with task initiation. And some of that is executive function.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what I found is a lot of times my feelings about it get in the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what I do with the feelings is I create a story. And
Mm-hmm.
then I act in really predictable ways to engage in a task. And so today we're going to talk about the things what do we do when we should be doing the task and we have all these emotions swirling
Mm-hmm.
around? We create the wrong story. And
Yeah.
so the motivational murderers are the stories we create through
Okay.
these techniques. So
So the
yes,
um
you go ahead.
and two of yours that I struck me as different than I had seen was the perceived amount of energy it's going to take.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
sometimes this is where we blow it into, oh my goodness, this is
Yeah.
going to take so much. And then the other is the perceived emotional energy
Right.
it's going to
Yep.
take. And those tend to intersect where we think oh, it's going to take a lot pretty soon. We've delayed it for 2 weeks. Now we're guilty and ashamed we didn't do it. So there's that other overlay on there.
Yeah, that's exactly. So let's just run through the
Great.
motivational murderers. Okay. Here's our lineup. Okay. And maybe your listeners can picture like mug shots of like cartoon
Great.
criminals,
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the first one is avoidance.
Yep.
And um, I love, is it Russ Ramsey who says procrastivity?
I
Um,
think so. Yeah.
yeah,
I've
I'm going to give
certainly
him the
seen
credit for it
it.
today, but someone can fact check us later. But avoidance is, look, I know I should do this task, but I have feelings about this task. And frankly, I'm scared. I'm overwhelmed. I'm just not sure what to do. So I want to feel good about myself. So I am going to do something else instead. And I
Mm-hmm.
will feel really good. However, it murders my motivation for getting that task done
Right.
because
But I did
yeah,
get the laundry done and I got the laundry folded. So that's two tasks. And
right.
I got something done that wasn't even on the task list. Man,
Exactly.
I'm going great.
Who's winning? Yeah. So, every year, when I coached college students, they would come in and go, yeah, I no, I didn't study for my exam. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, tell me about that. Well, I opened my sock drawer. I realized this is a huge mess. And
Hmm.
I spent all Saturday night arranging my socks. And now they're color coded, they're according to season, and they look beautiful. That's an example of avoidance. So avoidance was so satisfying to her that it killed her motivation to do the exam work. Right. And so avoidance is anytime we're just like trying to make ourselves feel good and we'll do something else. The next one is anxiety. And you know this one well, and you see this in all your patients. It's our gasoline. So the ADHD brain doesn't know what's important. So I look at my list and I'm like, I don't know what's important here.
Which is first.
I don't know how to prioritize. And humans in general are bad at prioritizing. Those of us with ADHD are worse. So
everything's kind of on the equal.
Everything feels big and important. Yeah. And something I'm always asking my clients, like, how do you know that's the next thing? Well, I just feel like, that, and it actually orders our true motivation because we don't know where to direct our attention. We're just turning up this thing called anxiety. We're just turning up the fire so that we can do anything.
And we know that there's some important things there. Which one am I going to pick the right one? And that's where you get off into that anxiety.
Spin off. And so we're actually trying to affect our motivation by turning up the anxious energy. Okay. We're trying to turn this up. But the problem is we end up burning ourselves out before we start. Because I have so much anxiety about this thing. I made it into such a big deal. This is so common that my husband and I have a joke about this in our house. Like, he'll go, what was the big deal? Because he will have made something so big in his head. And when it's done, he's like, it wasn't that big of a deal. Right? He was using anxiety and it backfired. Because anxiety eventually will cripple us. And you know this, this is very old research. There's a Goldilocks rate to anxiety. Too much anxiety will shut down. Not enough anxiety, we won't get started. Just right. And it's not really anxiety, guys, like you're thinking of it. It's alertness. And psychologists will refer to that as anxiety, but it's really, we're talking about relaxed alertness. So we do need enough, but ADHD people are like, crank that baby up. And then now we have too much.
And it's something we've learned. When I'm in that state, then I can get things done. But we wait until we hit that to get it done. And it's the day before the papers due or the form has to be completed or whatever.
Well, now you're bringing us to the third one, right? Because the third one is procrastination. And so again, we're kind of people who don't know how to just do it because that part of our brain is broken. I'm sorry, I just said our brain's broken. I literally wrote a book saying your brain's not broken. That part of the brain is unreliable for us.
There we go.
So scratch that, guys. I'm so sorry I said it. But that part of the brain doesn't work reliably. So that just do it button in your brain, you just can't push it. And so we're playing all these games. And so one of the motivational games we'll play is called procrastination. And procrastination is when we combine avoidance and anxiety, and poof, we get motivation. Here's the problem with that tool. It works sometimes, and the universe rewards us. And we're like, cool, I'll keep using it.
Yeah, I work better under pressure.
And sometimes it doesn't work. So my students who like, I'll I know it, Tamara, I'm a great writer. I'll just write this at the last minute. Great. And then they run into their internet was down. They couldn't turn in their paper. Something happens. And they're like, it's not my fault. This happened. Well, you're paying a procrastinating price there. And so I just bring that up because that's another thing that we're trying to do to motivate ourselves. And yet it just backfires. Bless our hearts, right?
And
it just backfires.
It's by the time we get to adulthood, I know some of us don't think of ourselves as adults until a lot later, but it's already ingrained from probably even grade school. Hey, you put off getting ready to go to school
Mhm.
because you really don't want to,
Right.
for whatever reason. And so then there's all this fallout from your parents saying, how come you aren't ready yet? Don't you realize every day we're supposed to be ready by 7:15 and blah.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
then we learn, okay, I can make it at 7:05 and finish getting dressed and brush my teeth there. That's done. And there I'm good. And then you get to school, you realize you left your paper at home.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly. And so this procrastination thing though, here's the problem. We think it works. And guess what? It works sometimes. And
Mhm.
for our brains, we're like, well, that's good enough. I'll take that. And so it's like, I always joke with my students, like, they'll walk in, they're like, hey, guess what, Tamara? I wrote the paper, turned it in, got an A-. I call that
There you
great.
go. Mhm.
And, they tell me about their last hour exploits and how it was a photo finish and all that excitement. I'm like, oh, I am so happy things turned out for you. I'm sad that the universe rewarded the procrastination
Yeah.
because now you have no reason to stop. And
And
they're like, you are exactly correct. And
intermittent
yeah,
reinforcement is
the
stronger
most
than
powerful.
big
Yep.
time.
You
So
remember that too. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, so that's why when I'm working with clients, I only work on procrastination when they ask. Otherwise, well, I only work on whatever when they ask, but I really don't try to poke that one because it's a survival mechanism and they get
Yeah.
rewarded for it.
And it's
However,
really hard to,
yeah,
at calling just that, it's really hard to just deal with that.
yeah,
Because there's so much background.
there's so much background and you've been rewarded. So, you know, I always reassure, they're always like, well, you're not going to make me stop procrastinating, are you? I'm like, I'm not going to make you do anything. And so, but people love procrastinating makes us feel like heroes,
Mhm.
right? So the next tools get a little darker after this, though. And so we have anger,
Mhm.
and then we have shame, and we have self loathing. And these are the darker motivators,
Mhm.
and they really harm us. So I don't know. Have you ever used anger?
As a motivator,
Yeah.
hmm, probably. Um, Sometimes I use it as I'm so angry I can't possibly answer this when this a prior authorization comes. It's been denied because they'll only let someone have one tablet a day. Yes,
Yeah.
but the the only way you can get to this next level acceptable dosage is to use two because the company doesn't make one stronger than 30 and you need to
Right.
get 40. And okay, I have to go back. It's not even educating somebody in the company about it. It's just, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, okay. So if you were motivated by anger in that moment, you would be pushing yourself to jump.
yeah.
And
Now,
so,
sometimes I do
yeah,
that and I'm writing out a
yeah.
printed
Oh, heck
basically.
no. And
And,
you start
and
typing. Yeah.
meanwhile, I've got other things to do that have to be
There you go.
done. I
Yeah.
really could do that tomorrow.
Yeah. 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 So anger is motivating to us. The problem is if you're doing things out of anger, you're burning yourself out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I became really good at statistics because I was angry at the professor. He wasn't doing a good job teaching. And I thought, well, I'm going to learn out of spite. I'm going to make you teach me. And I became a stubborn student who insisted on understanding it.
Boy, wish I had that one for statistics. I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to
I
figure it out.
but it was exhausting. I was exhausting myself out.
Mhm.
Instead of just pushing the just do it button that I wish I had, I kind of feigned this other emotion. And so that's one of the darker tools. Another one is shame.
Yeah, shame is huge.
Yeah. And what do you see in patients with shame?
I see so many people have, they'll say, yes, I know I should have done that, and I should have done that, I should have done that. And I'm thinking every time I hear should, that means you're ashamed about the fact you didn't live up to somebody's expectations,
Yeah.
that therefore you're bad, you're a bad person, instead of your behavior wasn't good, you're fine as a person.
Yeah.
But you get this, oh, I'm a bad person because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And that then that becomes a drag on the motivation, because
Yeah.
then there's guilt, I didn't do it, and shame, I should have been able to do it. And it gets into that's uncomfortable, so I don't want to do that.
There you go. And now, yesterday I messed up my calendar and I had told two people that we're going to meet in person. I put it on my calendar as virtual.
Hmm.
I don't know how that happened. And I just sent them the meeting, the Zoom link ahead of time. I'm like, hey, here's the Zoom link. And they're like, wait, what? Now, how lovely that I happen to work with an ADHD friendly group that went, yeah, that's fine, Tamara. We've done this before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the amount of shame I felt, like, how could
Yeah.
I inconvenience them? I caught like, and you hear all the negative self-talk that came up.
Yeah.
Shame is
And
horrible.
I have people with, I do a number of Zoom visits or virtual visits as patient visits. And sometimes it's just tough to get the connection to work.
Yeah.
And most of the time, a patient will apologize
Yeah.
that because they assume I must have done something wrong. I didn't get the technology to work right. And it's because who knows, the stars were aligned right, or the electrons took a vacation. And it's not anything that's their fault. It just didn't work.
Well,
But they blame themselves
yeah,
as not being able, not competent enough to make it work right.
that is exactly right. Right
So
there.
that's their story is, I
Yep.
must have done something wrong.
That's exactly it. And I have to admit, I buy into that story all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just waiting. So I happened to do this weird thing and I actually signed on 2 minutes early, which I'm not used to being early. Let's just admit that. And as I'm waiting for you, I'm like, well, wait a minute. What if you don't have the right link? And my rational brain is like, calm down, give him a few minutes. And you were right
Mm-hmm.
on time. But my brain's like, you've screwed up the link before. Why don't you just check it again?
Yep.
And guys, I don't have OCD. I'm so used to getting things wrong because I I feel this like predictive shame, right?
Okay. I bet you
So
I'm going to mess it up. Yep.
yeah, I bet you I will. I bet you I will do this. And so Tamara, you've made this mistake before. My brain's trying to help me. And yet shame actually backfires. Now, by the
Yeah.
way, our brain is trying to help us by telling us the shame story to go see. Don't do that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
The problem is we take that and it just chisels away at our sense of self.
And I think my own thought about that is that we've had so many messages from parents and teachers, and they're well intended terms of saying,
Yeah.
pointing out, you've done this so many times.
Why
My
won't you
father
learn?
used to say, how many times do I have to tell you? And
Yeah.
I absolutely would never say, I don't know, and as many as it takes. That
Yeah.
was not an option. Um, but that I've told you so many times, you should have figured this out.
Yeah.
And it's not a figure it out. It's not something my brain says, okay, I won't do that, because the next day, number one, the working memory, that's gone.
Yep.
And I'm not in the same context. That context is so important.
Yeah. That's exactly, I, it's so funny because I'm mad at myself too, right? I'm
Mhm.
angry. I'm mad at that I screwed up this up again. And so then I start to blame, the voice in my head goes, okay, now feel shame to help you remember not to do this again. And my brain's like, you know what? That sounds like a decent plan. Let's do that. Right.
And that never works.
And it doesn't work, but we try to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So the last one is self-loathing.
Okay.
And self-loathing is this, it is shame turned up.
I'm not good enough.
I'll never be good enough. I'm
Mm.
never enough. And that is the wound that I see ADHD people with the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the more powerful and also hardest to overcome, because it is so deeply rooted. And when someone's dug enough of a hole for themselves,
Right.
then it's even more. I have a friend who, she got behind on her rent, and then she got behind on her car payments. And how am I going to do the two of them? And then she got sick, so
Yeah.
couldn't work, and her work decided to fire her, and all kinds of things that, and so now she just can't even get going on anything.
Right.
Nothing's going to work.
Yep. And so the self-loathing has a story. And the
Mm-hmm.
story is you screwed up. You're
Mm-hmm.
nothing. Anything you get, you don't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure your listeners are like, hold up, how is that motivating to us? Well, in the wrong sense, we are trying to motivate ourselves. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if we kind of, it's like having a really mean drill sergeant in our head
Mm-hmm.
screaming at us, threatening to do things that drill sergeants who are mean threaten to do.
Yeah.
It's having that kind of self-abuse that we think will keep us in line so
Yeah.
that we stop
Yeah.
screwing up. So it
And
motivates me to behave better if I just hate myself a little bit more.
yeah. And it knocks that out. If particularly someone think has developed anxiety, it's going to happen again. So now they have a co-occurring anxiety for
Yep.
whatever reasons,
Yep.
that anxiety becomes so overwhelming that it's going to happen. And I don't know what to pick first of all these things, that I, it's all too overwhelming. I can't even move. So you get frozen.
Yep.
And
That's exactly it. And so you see, like, it's exhausting to be us then.
yeah, the energy, of how much energy is it going to take? And we think, oh, this is just going to take so much
Yeah.
to deal with this stuff. And it's a mixture of the emotional part and the amount we think it's going to take as far as energy. And I'm not worked up enough yet. I'll have to wait until I'm really upset, which then
There you
gets,
go. Yep. There you go. And so we rely on these for an emotional stimulus to try to try to get the energy to do it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the other things you mentioned in the book is a study where, um, looking at, I think it was, people were shown pictures while they were in an MRI. So it was looking at the nerve networks, nerve areas that were activated. And when there was a diamond shape, the next picture was going to be, a bunch of money, and
Yeah.
they knew they were going to get part of that. But if it was a circle or whatever,
Yep.
the next picture was the money, but with a big red X.
Yep.
And People who didn't have ADHD saw the diamond and thought, great, I'm going to get some money. So they had that reward sense. People with ADHD saw the diamond and, okay, oh, now there's money. And
Yep.
that's what was the reward to them.
Yep.
And we definitely all work on when you get reward, then you're motivated to do that again. So the anticipation of reward, but that's going to be in the future, doesn't work with ADHD. We need it now.
Well, and two reasons. And by the way, when I came across that study, I literally had to put it down for a couple weeks because I found that study personally depressing. And I'm sorry, I hope this is okay to share.
Sure.
Because
I
I'm like,
the same.
it's like, holy cow. I don't predict future events well at all.
Yeah.
And either I'm overly optimistic, overly pessimistic. I don't have an accurate predictor. And there's two reasons. One, short-term and working memory. So I don't remember that a diamond, I can predict this. I don't remember that. But then I remember how I feel about it. And so I don't remember the fact of the diamond. I remember like, yeah, I don't really like that as much. If I had been in the fMRI machine, I thought, oh, I like blue diamonds. Do you know I would have been able to predict it better? And so adding that layer of emotions on, and they specifically tried to take that out by just, bringing it down to colors and shapes. But I just find it so interesting that we don't predict well. And so no wonder we can't predict if I do this activity, this will feel good.
Yes, we're going to get the reward, even though I may not like the activity so much.
Right.
And I keep thinking about the way context makes such a difference. I know for me, I'm very visual memory.
Yeah.
And if someone has said something and I have emotional reaction, I can literally picture the room,
Yep.
color of the walls, what that person's wearing, where we were when he said that. But that similar situation that led to their reaction happens somewhere else, and I don't remember it. I don't associate it as, oh, if I do this, that's
Right.
not going to turn out right.
Right.
Not in the same situation.
And I know you know this, but those of us with ADHD, there's generally 5 kinds of memory, and semantic, episodic, emotional, procedural, and associative. Um, what rules for us is emotional memory. We will always remember how someone made us feel. Always.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of things in the reward system and the amygdala.
Yeah.
Watching for danger or not, and it's right next to the memory center. So it says, oh, do you have a memory about this? Yep, hold it. Everything's on free. And
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's just really the reason, and I think, would you mind moving into the solvent grid from
No,
here?
please. That's okay. We've
kinda,
talked about all these things that get in the way. How can we through those?
Yeah. So first of all, I know we just painted a bleak picture of those of us with ADHD. And I just want to tell you, how I put down that research for a couple weeks, because it was depressing. And then what made me come around is, but look at us. Somehow we make this work. It's not always pretty. It's not always good looking, but you know what? Somehow.
And sometime it is. We get into, I get into hyper focus and working on something, and I realize I haven't even stood up in 2 hours. Um,
Yeah.
but
Let
I've
alone use
got
the
a
restroom.
really good, yeah, I've got a really good flow on a thought or a paper or something I've wanted to express, and it is dynamite.
Yeah. Yep. And that's so yeah, and by the way, I start to in our ADHD populations try to differentiate with people the difference between hyperfocus and flow. Um,
Okay.
flow, and I know you've know the idea of flow. Flow state is the idea where somehow the planets have aligned and you just stepped into this river and you're floating down the river with
And
the
you're going.
ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And ADHD people can enter flow state. We
Mm-hmm.
can do that.
Mm-hmm.
What we usually do is we take the knockoff, the generic version of flow called hyperfocus,
Mm-hmm.
where we turn up the energy using whatever procrastination, anger, whatever we want,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
turn it up and intensify it. And then we're like, whoo, now I got the nice dopamine flowing here. I'll just get
Yeah.
this done.
And I'm getting all these ideas down and the exact phrasing I want. And
Yep. And
mm-hmm.
it's an intense and so people who are in flow tend to be relaxed and alert. Tend to
Mm-hmm.
people in hyper arousal or
Hyper
yeah,
focus.
hyper focus is a hyper aroused state.
Mm-hmm.
Tend to have tight jaw. Their facial muscles will tense up. They'll hunch your shoulders like your
Yep.
body is fighting at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's and I'm thinking myself just last night, I read an article in a medical journal about um, adult ADHD, basically diagnosing it and treating it. And there were about 5 things in there. I thought, no, that is not correct. And I have to write a letter saying this is why it's not correct. And I've got the
Yeah.
studies, the backing, and everything else. And pretty soon I was just hammering away out of anger. I
There you
have
go.
to prove that this just standard, yeah, this is the way it is, the kind of company line.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
So
And it's not
thank,
that way.
thank you for beautifully. That's a beautiful example because something in your brain, you're reading this and you're like, oh, hell no.
Yes, yeah,
You're
you're
like, I will
way
be
off base.
answering this, sir. And and you went into a hyper aroused state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We call hyper focus.
Yep.
Now, the reason I bring up flow is it is very possible for ADHD people to get that done in a sense of flow state.
Okay.
And this is where usually people are like, Tamara, you're talking some weird Zen stuff now. No, this is just in your window of tolerance when you're
Yeah.
not hyper aroused. You're just like, this really is an issue of correctness. And I really need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, remember, there's no hell no going on in your head. You're like, this,
This is support.
I have a responsibility to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Tomorrow I have some time between 2 and 4. I'm going to do that tomorrow. And I'll just start kind of putting my ideas together.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that we do with ADHD. We're preparing for flow state. So you're folding laundry, thinking about your rebuttal. You're washing dishes, thinking about the rebuttal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you show up, you're like, oh, I'm ready.
Yeah.
But you didn't have to do the hyper arousal. Now, I want to be clear. If hyperfocus is the only thing you have, that's okay. I'm not ever going to shame anyone for using it. I'm just saying it's an intensive energy.
It takes a lot more energy. And
Exactly.
I think that's the big thing. And that's where in the Solve It grid is looking at how to balance your energy over a day, and maybe it's over a longer period of time, so that you still have the energy, you still have some charge in the battery,
right,
to do either the boring stuff or the big project, but you don't have to be motivated by anger or
Yeah.
procrastination.
Yeah, that's exactly. Thank you for that I mean, that was a beautiful, um, because you care so deeply and it tapped
Yeah.
into, right?
And I tell myself I'm just going to put down some ideas about it. And soon I'm writing and I'm
Yeah.
editing and I'm getting down exactly
Yep.
what I want to say
Yep.
instead of remembering, you know what? You can just put down some bullet points here and get back to what you really have to finish in terms of work.
That's
Um,
exactly it.
and
Yep.
so I was here until 8 o'clock instead of
Yep.
getting out of here at 7:15.
Yep. And so that's the difference between flow state,
Mhm.
because I think at one point you may have hit flow where you're like, whoa, things are just kind of coming out. This is good.
Yeah, yeah,
So you probably kind of, hyper focus and flow state, we can go in and out. But then there's like this extra emotional push where no, I can't look at anything else but this.
yeah.
There you
And
go. Hyper
I
focus.
found myself thinking, you've got other stuff to do.
Yeah.
You're worked up enough about it. You can put it away because next time you read it, it just is.
You're gonna be
But
there
I
again.
was thinking, okay,
Yep.
and I know the reference and I can counter this or I can explain more about it. And here's the references because this article was in a journal. So you have to have references to um,
Refute. Yeah.
answer the different points. And I had all those in mind. So that's where my flow was, yeah, I've got this all lined up.
Yep.
Uh, but
Yeah. I love your brain. I just love,
yeah,
yeah.
sometimes, most of the time I do, sometimes I get angry at it
Yeah.
when I look back.
It is. Yeah.
So how does
Our,
the solve it grid, for instance, apply on that one?
yes. So I'm going to share, whoops, I'm going to share my screen, but that's not what I want to see right now. So I'm going to try this one more time. All right.
You get
Sorry
the,
for my clumsy sharing. It's like,
that's all right.
if this is my first day on Zoom, evidently. Just joking. I'm on Zoom all the time. All right. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. How
That's all right.
clumsy of me. Um, okay. So there we go.
There we
All right.
go.
Now we're in business. Sorry for the clunkiness there, folks. Um, all right. So when we look at, let's just look at this line first. The first line that I want you to look at, and for those of you just listening, it's a horizontal line on a continuum. We have not fun and fun. And David, wouldn't you agree this is how we see our lives?
Yeah, something that's fun. I want to do that. Emptying the dishwasher is not fun
Right. I will
unless
avoid that. Yes.
we come up with a game to do it.
Yep.
But that can be hard to do with emptying the dishwasher
Yeah.
or laundry.
Yep. That's exactly it. So now I'm going to add a vertical line there. And the vertical line is also a continuum and it dissects the fun, not fun. And at the very top, we have emotionally stimulating. And that's like when we get angry to do something, right?
Yep.
Or not emotionally stimulating. And so what you and I do is when we look at a task and we're like, unloading the dishwasher. That doesn't sound like very fun, but it's certainly not emotionally stimulating to me. There's nothing emotionally stimulating.
And that's where, because we're driven by emotion, the emotional stimulating stuff we're going to go with.
Right? So then when you put the quadrants together, we're going to name the quadrants. And so I have my clients look at this and I say, where do you think you have the most problem, or any ADHD person? And I really think this could be an ADHD test because every ADHD person has this conversation and they'll look and they'll go, well, red isn't good, but I can do red. I don't like yellow. I have a yellow problem.
Yep.
And so for those of you listening, yellow is the lower quadrant, and it's not fun, and it's not emotionally stimulating.
Mm-hmm. It's in
Two
that
negatives.
bottom left side. Yep.
Thank you. Yes. And so it's two negatives. And you named dishwasher. What are some other yellow things for you?
Doing charts.
Oh gosh,
Finishing
I
the
almost made a joke about that earlier.
documentation.
Yeah.
It for me, okay, I've seen the patient, we've talked, I've sent them a message about what we talked about. That's done.
Yeah.
No, you have to write it down and show what
Yeah.
you did.
Every doctor I've ever coached
Mhm.
has a problem with charting.
And every doctor I've ever seen as a patient with ADHD has that, and any others I talk to that aren't patients. They
Yep.
may not even have ADHD,
Right.
but the charting is the
Is
tough
the
part.
nemesis. Yes. Oh, always the nemesis. So yellow is this problem where we don't know how to hold on to it.
Mhm.
And you said it so well. You said, well, I saw the patient. I was good for the patient. I followed up with what I needed to follow up for the patient.
Yeah.
Good. What am I supposed to do next? Just write some scrawls on the this is
Yeah.
stupid.
And unfortunately now I've got to click the right box
Yes.
on the computerized record. So yes, I did review their medications.
Yep.
Yes, I did look at their social history. Yes, I checked this and that. And that takes,
Oh,
yes, it's only a mouse click, but I have to click it to the place where I'm going to that section and find the
yep.
little button to click it. And developers have much better eyesight than I do. So they make these little tiny buttons or spots to hit, and you have to hit right in the middle. You can't hit pretty
Yep.
close.
Yep. So there's a tedium with this,
Mm-hmm. So
right?
it's
And
not
it's
fun.
not emotionally stimulating.
No, no, it's an emotional drag.
It's just drag. Like there's nothing here for me.
Mm-hmm.
So so let's talk about red, the quadrant right above yellow.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's not activity is not fun, but it's emotionally stimulating.
Mm-hmm. The
And that's
deadline's there. I really like this. Like when I was writing out last night, the emotion was really strong. Man, that
yep,
got me into it.
yep,
Not necessarily fun because
right,
it was taking away from what I needed to, but it was so emotionally overwhelming, and it takes a lot of energy
yeah,
out of getting back to the yellow and finishing the charts.
yeah. Do you see how this is exhausting
Yeah.
for us? And so red is a place where I could I'll be really honest, I did most of my PhD work in red.
Mm-hmm.
I was undiagnosed, untreated. I didn't have anything but red. So I'm like, all right, I'll just do everything in red, which
Mm-hmm.
means I turned up the heat emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's go back to, those things that detract from our motivation. Well, yellow, I want to avoid yellow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do other things and we'll get to the other quadrants, but I'll float around in other quadrants to avoid yellow.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in yellow that it starts to turn orange and it starts to get red. And
Yep.
all of
It's
a
getting
sudden, because I'm
more
procrastinating,
deadlines. Mm-hmm.
yep, more deadlines. And so everything is red. And so I'm working, it's not fun, it's highly emotionally stimulating in a negative sense.
Which I've almost brought on because I'm anxious about it, or I'm angry
There you
about
go.
it. I'm angry at myself because I didn't get it done yet.
Yep.
And here we go again.
Yep. There you go. And that is exactly what happens. So red, there's nothing wrong. By the way, there's nothing wrong with any of these quadrants.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to pay attention to usage. We just want to pay attention to what's happening with our energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's hop over to right across from yellow is blue. And that quadrant is fun and not emotionally stimulating. So people
Okay.
have a hard time with this, but let's think about this. Technology has a lot of blue to give us.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. What examples come up in your life?
Um, YouTube Shorts. I,
Okay.
if there was a way to turn those out of
Yep.
YouTube,
Yep.
I mean, I like to watch soccer games, summaries of soccer games.
Yep.
YouTube is where I can get it. But then I make the mistake of clicking on one
There you
thing in
go.
the shorts, and next thing I know, it's an hour.
Same thing, except
One,
Instagram Reels,
yep,
right? So now I'm like, I'll just look at one. It's fine. I can stop anytime.
yeah. I,
And
I don't
because
need to
it's
look at more.
right, it's just fun enough, but it's not really emotionally stimulating. None of those are
Mhm,
really going to shake up my life.
mhm.
At most, I'll go, interesting. Sometimes I'm like, that's too stupid to be out there. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah,
but
and other times, man, that's really cool. How those
yeah,
guys dance like that.
yeah. Okay. So,
But
yeah,
so it's emotionally stimulating in a way. It's really neat that people can do that. And the thought will occur to me, I don't need to do this,
right.
but I
But
want to.
it's
I
not
want
emotionally
to.
stimulating enough where it feeds your soul,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
right? So, blue, I want to be clear, there's nothing wrong with blue. It's like food, though. You need the right amount and
Hmm.
healthy food.
And
That's the whole secret to eating. The right amount and healthy food. Well, the
with
secret, go ahead.
blue, I think that temptation is okay, I get these yellow things done. I get to reward myself. And all
There you
these
go.
things I read say, do 25 minutes of this. Okay, then take 5 minutes and get a reward
Yeah,
for it. And I'll just look at one soccer game summary. An
done.
hour later,
Yep.
I wasted an hour and I'm not going to get back to yellow. Now I don't have time. I got to get to bed.
Okay. All right. So you just brought up an important point. It is okay to reward yourself with blue because I call it being an adult. Like I adulted a lot today. I
Hmm.
earned my screen time, just like I'm a
Hmm.
12-year-old, right?
Yeah.
I earned my screen time, except, and I literally have it set on my phone to pop up and says you've used up your screen time. Now
Hmm.
I still have a choice to cancel it and go ignore the limit for today. But then that's on me. If I make that
Yeah.
choice, that's on me. Like that's not me getting
I'm an
distracted.
adult. I get to make choices.
Right. So because I am a grown woman, I'm like, oof, I want to ignore the limit today, but it is 9:30. And if I spend more time, it's gonna get too late. So
Hmm.
I'll turn off Facebook or Instagram. I have to do that because I, like every other ADHD person, have a hard time with blue.
Hmm. And
But
then,
now remember, blue's not bad,
right.
right?
And I think this may get into the um, not being able to plan into the future because we're in the reward so much,
Yep.
we don't see the consequence of, yeah, but yesterday you didn't like this and it didn't turn out too well.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but that's not now. I'm here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I tell people to think about what your future self would tell your present self,
Yep.
how much your future self is going to appreciate that you turned it off and went to bed. And you want to take care of yourself, and that's your future self.
Yep. Yeah. Um, a lot of times I have full discussions with future self,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because here's what happens. Past self shows up and says, listen, you dumb muckety muck,
Yep.
you screw me over,
Yeah.
right? And I want to, yell at my past self all the time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm mad at you. Instead, I'm like, oh, but I have a responsibility to future self.
Yeah.
So I'm going to set her up because I want her to be successful. So
Hmm.
let's get to green. Green is in the upper quadrant across from red,
Hmm.
and it's emotionally stimulating and it's fun. One time,
Hmm.
when I was first presenting this, I was kind of trying this out. And back then it was the CHAD conference.
Hmm.
And I remember I was doing a pre-conference on that. And someone, I presented this and someone just burst out. There was a group of 30 in my room. Someone just said out loud, wait, I can do green? I didn't know I was allowed to have green in my life.
Yeah, because I haven't done all the yellow stuff.
I haven't done all the yellow. I don't deserve green.
Hmm.
And she started crying. And you know, we're at an ADHD conference, so of course there's a lot of people near her going, yeah, we understand. And it was a good safe room. But she
Hmm.
didn't realize that she had been trying to be such a good adult, and
Hmm.
in her mind adulting was only yellow.
Yeah,
And
you,
so I
you
got
have
to
to get
share.
all the yellow done. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in her head it was only yellow.
Oh,
You're
okay.
just not allowed green. You're period. And so
Hmm.
it's interesting because green rejuvenates us.
Yeah. And
Green is what gives us energy.
hmm.
It's what feeds that deepest part of us. I recently went out to dinner with a new friend, and there were four of us. And oh my goodness, we were laughing. It was fun. The conversation was just bouncing,
Hmm.
and it was just safe. Most of the people at the table had ADHD, so we were kind of, it was a funny kind of, we were riffing off of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I left feeling fulfilled.
Yeah.
That's green.
Hmm.
And I want to tell you, there is a cost to green though, because notice that it's emotionally stimulating. You have to have enough emotional energy to get to green.
Hmm. And um, I that's one thing where I can certainly remember how much I enjoy being in green, not just green quadrant, but and it's easier maybe here in the Northwest where it rains so much, everything's green.
Yeah.
Uh, but getting out into the woods, getting to somewhere where I'm surrounded by green, because green's a nice peaceful color
Yep.
and it just helps things calm down and it's fascinating. I love just looking at all the different greens, looking up into some trees and all
Right.
the different shades of green. And that's a good feeling.
Yeah. And it restores you.
Yes. And I can do that by walking out the door in the parking lot and look up into the trees.
Yep.
It doesn't take a whole lot of preparation or anything else. I just have to remind myself it's okay to walk out the office door and walk out of the building and do that.
Yep.
You don't
I,
have to
I,
stick with things.
and by the way, we do know nature has an effect on those of us with ADHD.
Hmm.
There is a positive effect. We don't know why, but we know that there is.
Absolutely.
And so nature is very important for me too. We live on a lake. I live in Michigan, so there's a lake every, 100 feet or so, it seems.
Hmm.
But I paddleboard on our small little lake, and it just feels so peaceful and
Hmm.
so good and so right. And I try to paddleboard late into the season because I just love the feeling of it so much. So, so I would ask your audience to think about, what is your green? David and
Hmm.
I just said, our green is literally green. It's literally getting out in nature.
That's
Um,
yeah,
but what is your green? And so the test for green is, when you're done, does it leave you with more energy or
yeah.
not?
And that's where you can balance not only your day so that you've got the reward, but you're also recharging those batteries. If I go out at 5:30, okay, I've done seeing patients. Now I have to do some of the
Yeah.
prior authorization junk, or I have to finish the charts. But if I get up and go outside for a while, I come back and I've got some more energy. I was
Okay.
also thinking about this in the context of a week.
Yeah.
So all week I've been interacting with people and having to be on the computer and sometimes choosing to be on it. And there's just noise everywhere. If on a Sunday morning, I say, okay, I'm going to play classical music. I'm going to play it on my actual phonograph. I have this cool little one in my
That's cool. Yeah.
vinyl collection.
Yeah.
So I don't have to put up with Alexa telling me it's going to play only the second movement. No, I want the whole symphony.
Yeah.
Or commentary from who's ever on the radio in between.
Right.
And that's just relaxing. It's a reward for me. That's just got a lot of good memories to it. So it refreshes me over a week. It's taken away a lot of that noise and jangle of just the overstimulation. And we, with ADHD, we're definitely more sensitive to all the different senses, particularly the noise and the visual, everything moving around. So a
Yeah.
time that you can just relax and keep it even
Yeah.
with something that's emotionally stimulating. And for you, it's fun.
Yep. That's exactly it. Well, okay. So you're getting at our patterns. So what happens, and I think where the Solvik grid can help us, is we can look at our patterns, not judge it, right? We're not going to judge our patterns. We're not going to punish and go, oh, I spent too much time in blue, you dumb idiot.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's what this is for. Looking forward. So today I shared that I had a whole big day of grown-upping today, right? I've been in meetings since 9 a.m. and they're good meetings. And so sometimes, even though it was a yellow, I had to do some tasks, I would float into green because I was meeting with some really delightful people. And then I would, every once in a while I floated into red because oh, crud, this really needs to happen. But for the most part, a lot of yellow today. Right. And I shouldn't say this, but even listening can be yellow for me sometimes. I know my whole career is based on that, but it still takes a lot of effort for me.
Well, yeah, it definitely, and sometimes it's the red, it's not necessarily fun. And I look at that, I'm working with someone that I can't figure out how to help them.
Yeah.
And it's emotionally stimulating because I enjoy listening to people and trying to
Right.
figure out the puzzle. And that's what I do and why I do what I do.
Yeah.
But it's not so much fun because I can't get to where I want. Then I have to think, I don't have to solve everything for everybody. I can do my best. But it takes red, so there's a lot of energy. So boy, by 5 o'clock some days, I'm just wiped out. There's no more reserve there.
Okay, that's exactly it. And so let's talk about like our lives like a battery. So every morning we wake up with hopefully a full battery. Now, the previous version of ourselves we could have not done well going to sleep. We could have had a poor night's sleep. So some of us might only wake up with 70% of a battery charge.
Yeah.
Well, we have to start to understand that. Like, okay, last night I had a very poor night of sleep. And so I don't know if you know this, and I think this is still true, but you really experience tomorrow. I have to be careful because I had a bad sleep 2 nights ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I woke up today. I reminded myself, like, hey, you might feel a little low energy because you didn't have a good night's sleep. But remember, tomorrow we're going to put yourself on high alert because you're just going to have to take yourself, just be very kind. And remember that. And I thought, well, I'm not going to remember it. So I just jotted it down in my calendar.
Yeah.
So then I'm going through my day and my battery's draining. And if I'm in yellow, that is draining my battery a lot. Now it doesn't drain as quickly as I think it will, but I'll get to the end of today going, whoo wee, that was a day, right? Now, if I go spike up to red, that's going to drain your battery a lot faster.
Yes. Yes.
And what I'm asking people to do is be aware of how you're using your battery.
Hmm.
Some people, now blue can be like a little bit of a charge, like a trickle charge. That's when you like plug something in, it slowly keeps the battery going. Green though, that's where we get the charge.
Hmm.
So ideally, every day we should be experiencing green.
Hmm. And I know one of the things you got to, and I think it ties into mindfulness and being aware. This helps us be aware that, oh, green's a choice.
Yeah,
Um,
green's a
and how
choice.
can I think about how can I work it in there? So starting a day with just some, okay, quiet time, maybe reflection that I'm going to be able to get a lot done. I'm going to be able to do well today, and just peace. And then mid-morning, okay, how am I
Yeah.
doing? Have I hit, boy, I'm going into blue a lot here. What can I do? What choice can I make to do
Yes.
something else?
Yes.
Say maybe midday. Certainly for me, I've got to do that at probably 5 o'clock when I'm finished the patient seeing day, and I
Yeah.
still have a lot of tasks to do. Okay, I've been drained. I got to
Yeah.
find some green. Definitely don't go into blue.
Right. Right. Because you can't handle the blue.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
not my battery's already down. And
Right.
so being mindful that that will help. And at first it may seem like I don't want to stop in the middle of the morning and look at that stuff. I have to do things.
Yep.
Remember, it's going to help you do maybe the more important ones,
Yep.
or take time enough to do what you're doing well and not flitting from one thing to the other.
Yeah.
So that's time well spent.
Yep. That's exactly. That's so good. Um, and before I developed the Solvit grid, I had a pattern of going to red, red, red all week because that's the only way I knew how to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't understand why I was always so exhausted on the weekends. And I'd flop to blue all weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, now that's just a red blue pattern. I'm not including getting the yellow done in a timely fashion or heaven forbid green.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
even
I can.
allowing myself. I'm just so exhausted. And so I mean, I was in a real rut and I wasn't
Mhm.
using my energy wisely. And so something I want your listeners to really take away is we can manage our energy differently
Mhm.
by by doing what you just suggested, making cognitive choices.
Yeah, we have the choice to do those,
Right.
and remembering we do. No, I don't have to listen to the past stories. I
Right.
don't have to stay stuck in that. I
Right.
can make a new story, and it's not going to happen all of a sudden. Sometimes I forgot to do that. Stop and look at things. Look, I've been doing a whole lot of blue today. That's all right. That's today.
Yep.
You get to do more of it tomorrow.
Yeah.
S- Stick to it, and I think that it's a fairly quick reward in terms of the way you feel, the way I feel when I do those. I don't have to do it for a month to now I'm going to finally get
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah.
That can end up a day thinking, yeah, I still got some energy here.
You know, it's interesting. Sometimes I'll say to myself, listen, I know you're tired. You don't want to answer those emails. How about you just do one and see how you feel? And so
Okay.
I'm negotiating with myself, like just a little bit of yellow, just a little bit.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, I'll do one. And then sometimes I'm like, well, I might as well do another.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I sometimes with yellow, especially at the end of the night, when I've done a lot of yellow during the day, I'm like, do you think you want to do a little bit more yellow? It's okay. And the pull to blue is so strong. It's like, no, I just want to sit here on my phone or stare at at the television. Like, I want to do those things.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And so if I can just kind of go, well, if you could go for a walk, that'd be great.
Yeah. And even if up here we're about to enter rainy season, it'll be raining or drizzly or showers or spitting, whatever. We have more word for rain up here than anywhere else.
Right.
I can go to get outside, but I'm still under the eave of the roof, so I'm not going to get wet. And I'm
Right.
still looking in the green, being able to have a longer sight distance than just being in a room. And
Yep.
that can be rewarding and energizing, even if it's only just 5 minutes.
Right. Right.
So it's little things help balance things.
Yeah. And
And
that's really what I'm asking people to do is understand the grid and where you are on the grid. And
mhm,
this
mhm,
actually increases our predictability. Remember how earlier we talked about predictability?
yep,
So if I know a task, I'm like, oh, that's just a whole bunch of yellow tasks there. And then I think to myself, well, you have a choice. You can
mhm,
play the games you play with yellow, or why don't we try yellow just a little bit?
yep,
Um,
and not
and
get
then
into that.
some days to be truthful, I'm like, I just want to be in blue all day. That's all I want to do. And I'm like, well, that's not going to lead to good things in life, Tamara, if you're in blue
Yeah.
all day.
And
By the way,
you do your future self or
right.
your partner or spouse or whoever you're living with or dealing with is going to really appreciate it if you get some of the
Yes.
yellow done. Uh,
Yep.
and
But
unfortunately, even though we've been in green so much for the two of us enjoying what we're doing,
yeah,
we're also coming up to the fact
you're
that
right.
time marches on. Um,
Uh, you know what? You are exactly right. Meeting with you is always green time for me.
well,
So
thank
thank
you. And I'd say that the same. So we have been talking today about the things that get in the way of the motivation, the ability to just get things done, like anger or getting all emotionally worked up, or avoiding because, no, I don't like that. Uh, and then what you can do to balance your energy over a day, over a week, so that you can get some of those mundane tasks done, but you also get to have the green. Um, you are worthy of having the green. And you know why you're worthy? You were born. That's all it takes. You were born, and therefore you're worth it.
love that. Yes.
Thank you so much, Tamara. It was great to talk with you. Dr. Tamara Rosier's book is Your Brain's Not Broken, which is the first of her books. And the second one is coming out officially fairly soon. Remind me of the title of that one.
Yep. It's called You, Me, and Our ADHD Family.
Great. And
And
that's
it comes out September 24.
great. Good deal. So thank you all for listening and watching. Um, enjoy thinking about and reflecting on what you've done in terms of giving yourself some good material to listen to. This is Dr. David Pomeroy, your host of ADHD Focus, and glad to have you with us.